My name's Candid West. I'm a threat researcher with Symantec's Global Security Response Lab, based in Zurich. That's Switzerland, not US. So pretty close by. I want to give out shouts to Mario Bolano and Han Lau, who helped with the research for that paper. And it looks like you all kind of have an idea what quantified self is. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here, or you just thought the other talks are even more boring than mine. But let's dive into, by quantifying self, it's kind of one of those buzzwords which appeared last year, going around self-tracking, self-aware, making a healthy lifestyle and everything. So it's kind of an influence between Internet of Things, sports activities, wearable technologies. So now smartwatches and everything obviously goes in there as well. There's influence from pop cultures as well. So you kind of get a pretty good mix of different influences going into the direction of tracking every aspect of your life, everything, for whatever reason that might be the only thing that you can decide, because sometimes it's actually escaping me why you would record those information and even why you would share those. But here for that presentation, I'm actually going to focus on fitness wearable devices. So like the Fitbit Flex that I'm wearing here, those bracelets, which count the amount of steps you take, how long you sleep, stuff like that. There's Jawbone and a few more that we see. So more the kind of fitness-oriented one. I'm not going to talk about smartwatches, but it goes into the same direction, so you can probably guess one or two of those fakes or problems that we've seen there. So where could there potentially be any problems if we look at the devices? Well, most of those devices actually have kind of three different things, and there's risks associated with all of them. So you have the devices on one side, then you have either a laptop or a smartphone, and then you have the cloud storage. So that's typical for most of the devices, meaning you have your bracelet, like I'm wearing here, which communicates usually via Bluetooth low energy, so Bluetooth Smart, to your smartphone or a laptop with a dongle, and that one actually then uploads to the internet. Because, well, having Wi-Fi on your bracelet just tears down the battery life and usually is not what you want to have. But we've seen a few, like Jawbone has one which has a connector with a jack, so it's a typical headphone jack connector, so you're not using any Wi-Fi connection. We've seen some scales from Withings, for example, which have a RJ45 connector. So you actually hook up your scale to your home router, and then it can connect with, well, your home network and transmit the information from there. But those are the typical places where we see it. And obviously, you can think of information at rest on your device, in transit to your smartphone, on your smartphone, in transit to the cloud, and in the cloud as well. So I'm going to look at a few of those points and show you how actually the information is not protected, or anyone could actually get into this device and, well, start changing stuff. So the first of all is, well, some of those devices, they kind of do unintentional data leaks. So in order to get those information, I analyzed the top 100 applications from the iTunes store, matched it with Android, so using iOS devices and Android devices. There's a few thousands out there, but I was looking only at the free applications, and there's only a few hundred ones, and you actually got starting into some applications which you could question the use of it. So some of them, you can log your toilet behavior, so as in how often you go to the toilet. Luckily, they don't include photos, but not sure why you want to share this information with the cloud, with your doctor maybe. There's a lot of applications for losing weight, so calorie inbound, how much you exercise, that's the typical ones. We've seen a lot for period tracker for women, so fertilization, can you get pregnant, when, which days, and so on, usually tracked as well, so that's pretty sensitive as well. And it goes down to even measuring, obviously, your pulse rate and stuff like that. So there's good ones, there's simple ones which actually just take in your how many liters or how many cups of water you drink per day, just kind of to keep you informed, and probably also reminding you that you should drink more water. The whole thing is then connected now with more and more devices coming up. So I'm already mentioned that I'm focusing on those fitness bracelets, but we've seen now that there's toothbrushes which use Bluetooth to communicate with an app on how often you use the toothbrush to brush your teeth. There's a cup which can actually detect what's inside of it. So check if it's coffee with milk, with sugar, if it's water, if it's Coke, if it's anything, and will automatically take the amount of calories and add it to your profile. So pretty interesting one. There's others like a spoon, which actually, obviously measures how often you eat something like a soup, and also if you're too fast or not, and kind of tries to slow you down, because you shouldn't rush while you're eating. But with some of the stuff, we see that they're actually connecting to a lot of different services. On average, it's 5 different services being contacted, but we've seen some which contacted up to 14 different ones. So it's obviously the service itself, because they want to store your data. But usually it's a crash analytics platform, kind of checking if the application works. If there's any bugs, they want to be notified about it. There's usually some advertisement networks, because as I said, I've looked at the free applications. But that's about 4 or 5. So a lot of them actually use multiple advertisements to get more revenue. They sometimes use some CRM tools to make more use of that. And they integrate into social networks as well, kind of Facebook, Twitter, and everything like that. So sometimes your information is actually shared with a lot of different points. And that means you have to trust all of them to actually safeguard your information. Even though sometimes it's only part of it, you might still not trust all of them. So just one example, it's been a bit older, but it's still funny. Fitbit once had the default settings to share everything with everyone. So you could go online and actually search for profiles from other people. And one of the settings, or one of the activity, is sexual activity. So you could actually just use Google to search for people's sexual activity, basically measuring the activity through vibration. There's other devices which use that for sound. You can see there, probably if you look into when it started, 30 minutes here, 45 minutes. There's been some pretty nasty jokes, because some just have 5 minutes or 6 minutes, which is not so good. Might be intense though, but so it's definitely not the information you want to share with everyone, right? I've looked at another application which promise you that they're not going to store the information in the cloud. It's also about sexual activities. You actually have to place your mobile or your smartphone on your bed, and it registers the vibration and the noise level. If you want to do that, okay, it's up to you. I wouldn't. But they're not lying in the sense of they're definitely not transmitting the information to the cloud. Unfortunately, the crash analytics software is still used. So every time you say start activity and stop activity, that information is sent to the crash analytics platform. Luckily, they use SSLs. At least it goes directly there. Unfortunately, the free application uses advertisements after you say, okay, I'm finished with the exercise. And it's so predetermined that actually just by looking at the traffic for requesting those ads and the user agent, you can already guess when it stopped. And by seeing the first encrypted traffic going to the crash analytic platforms, you also know when it stopped. So you already know when it started and stopped, even just by looking at passive information which goes into the network. At that point, you don't know yet who it is, but we'll come to that later. So sometimes it's unintentional. How could you solve that? Well, all the big players, so you got Google with Google Fit, you get Apple with HealthKit, and you get Samsung with the Semi, which try to act as a data broker in between. So they will help you as a developer get the information into the secure storage on the smartphone, and then they vet which application can access the information and so on. Obviously, Apple says it has to be really strict, so every application who wants access has to have a privacy policy, is not allowed to sell your data. You have to granularly request which information you want to access and give some feedback, so that's actually good. The problem is 52% of all the applications I looked at didn't even have a privacy policy. And I mean, not even a rudimentary where it says, well, we take your data and store it securely without explaining what they do and so on. They just don't have one. which kind of leaves you with the fuzzy feeling of they could do anything with your information. It might even be tricky for you to get legal action against them because they didn't promise anything. So that's one of the key points, that you still have to trust them. And with the Health Kit with Apple, we saw that they had some problems with iOS 8 releasing Health Kit. All the applications didn't work. With 8.2, they fixed something. With things, one of the vendors still has problems, so they're hoping now for 8.1, which is a good thing in the sense Apple tries to really make it right the first time. Well, at least try to make it right pretty quick. But it also shows that it's not so easy to actually safeguard this information correctly. And it's already analyzed. So one example from Jawbone, during the earthquake in San Francisco for a few weeks back, they actually used their own data to kind of make a nice, and I love the graphic showing you who woke up when and how long did it take them to get back to sleep. So you got a few different graphs there. The higher peak is actually pretty close to where the earthquake was happening. The further away you get, the people just wake up a little bit and then fall asleep again. So that's actually nice. Well, it's not rocket science, because you would assume that the far away you are, you're not really disturbed by sleeping too much. But it also shows that, first of all, they know how you sleep, when you sleep, and so on, and they know where you live, because obviously they have the GPS coordinates as well. Luckily, they only make kind of anonymized statistics out of it, so there's no real harm here. But the question is where to draw the line. Do you really want the police to come to you and say, well, we know you've been at the scene of crime yesterday at 12 o'clock, please report because we want to get a statement from you? I mean, yes, it's for the good sense, helping the police, but still, where to draw the line, who has access to this information, and who's selling the information or not. Obviously, the big vendors like Fitbit, they promise you and say they're not selling the information to anyone else, but as I said, 52% don't even have a privacy policy, so it's the question, will they actually hold true to the promise that they have? So there's a lot of ifs and whens that you have to consider. And then it gets to the basic worth things. So from all the applications I looked at, 20% actually sent passwords in clear text. So just regular HTTP GET requests or POST requests. And here's a few of my favorites. So classic POST requests, that's while registering a new user account. So you have action, register user, here my alter ego, so Ken West, and the safe, secure password. All transmitted in clear text. So if you're at the coffee shop, everyone else will know your password. That one actually has a nice API. We'll go to that later on as well. So setting up all the information, also in clear text. The last one here, they tried to be a little smarter. So they're using MD5 hashes of your password. Unfortunately, they hash it on your application. So the backend server only gets to know your hash, which is good, but means I only steal your hash and I can still log in with the hash because, well, the backend does not know your password at all. So nice try, but still not working. And I've seen one which tried Caesar cipher, so shifting every character by 6. That's no encryption scheme that's holding, might have worked for Romans, but so, I mean, that's clearly default settings which should not happen nowadays with all the breaches that we see. But unfortunately, we still see it happening. And you would think, okay, those are the smaller kind of one-man show developers getting your toilet applications and stuff. Yes, some of them are, but we had a few of the bigger brands in there as well, which are still not fixed. So I contacted all of them. 2 responded and fixed it. A few more promised to fix it sometimes. Well, not responding to me, but on the website. But a lot of them seem to ignore it. That's unfortunately another point that we have. And passing information as a password is one thing. The activity itself is often passed as well. So even more than the 20% sent your activity in clear text, which is even more schizophrenic because they encrypt your password using SSL encryption on transit. But then the traffic, as in how many steps you take, if you run 2/4 of a mile or whatever, that information is passed in clear text back to the cloud service again. So they're not really using the security that they actually already implemented. I also seen that a lot of them Well, you can just simply do man in the middle and swap the certificate, because they're not checking if it's the real certificate, and they're not checking for any of the revocation lists either. So just having a man in the middle SSL proxy stripping using your own self-signed certificate works for many of those applications to say, well, you're trusted, of course, go on. And obviously you could use any locations like Black Hat or a hotel to set up your free Wi-Fi hotspot, and you will definitely get people to sign up, and then you can modify their data, and we'll see what can happen with that. So a lot of the information which is passed is inherent, insecure, which leads to stuff like this. So that's again one of the examples which has a nice API, which does not need any authentication. So you don't even need a valid account to access it. It's a free website, basically. And guess what? 877 is my user account. I think they're now up to 2,000. So in a few months, a few thousand people up. It's actually a pretty good user adoption rate. And if you go there, just wget or curl, you get all this nice information. So pretty big blob. Have to give kudos. They actually fixed most of it already. So this is one of the rare cases where they responded to it. But if you take the juicy bits out of there, you see we have the name, your email, password, birthday. Well, not sure why they need my birthday, but photos, because some of them allow you to upload pictures of you after running 42 kilometers or whatever, just to kind of prove that you were sweating and everything. And they have stuff like for Nike Plus passwords, Fitbit tokens, with things, that's another vendor, and obviously Google UID, Facebook access tokens, and so on. Guess what? That's usually the application which is allowed to post in your name to your wall, to your timeline, whatever, saying, hey, Candide just finished a nice run in 2 minutes from the Excelsior room to the 102 room. Yes, you can do that. Obviously, it kind of motivates people. I see the point there. But that also means that if someone has access to your account, because it's just in clear text, or here, it's stored in the cloud unsecured, everyone else can use the same token to actually post in your name. It's not working for all the applications, but for some of them, you can modify them and actually use that. What would be the clear advantage for a cyber criminal? Obviously, spammers would love it, because you get your email address, you get the real name, and you get a context. Because if you go back, it has also the still working on weight loss, kind of a motivation sentence of what's your goal, what you're trying to achieve, how many kilos you still want to lose. So taking that obviously makes it a perfect start for saying, hey, we got that new weight loss pill, just $9.99 now. All your friends recommended it. Here's the pictures of them, and yeah, go for it. So the chances that someone actually will fall for that spam is probably pretty high, because you have an actual context, you have the name and everything. And well, if you don't want to send the spam mails through any botnet, well, just use any of the open remailers that they provide themselves. So that's another application, which is pretty interesting what they do. If I use my smartphone, I'm logging in, my smartphone actually sends this post request, which says, hey, please generate an email to remind me that I have a new private message in my application. Well, I'm in the application actually sends me, or kind of gets the request to send me an email. Not sure why they didn't just use a pop-up message or anything like that, but don't want to understand it. But as you guessed, you can simply change everything in the post request. So it's an open relay for sending spam messages to everyone, not even just registered users, but anyone. And stuff like that, which is kind of nothing new. We've seen applications again and again, but with the context and everything, it kind of gets scary, because that means you can really mess up with the things. And those are just kind of the simple examples, and a few more complex ones. One application which allows you to upload backups and then restore backups, which is nice. Many actually don't offer that flexibility. How they do it is they basically create a SQL3-Lite dump of all the tables on your smartphone, upload the whole thing with the SQL statements, as in create table with fill in everything and so on, and the same for restoring it on your device. Unfortunately, again, not protected. So just by downloading it, swapping in the middle a few of the SQL statements, guess what? You can obviously drop every table that you want. You can swap some of the information in it. You can basically mess with anything you want there. So a lot of things that could go bad. What's the possible impact? Well, the clear one being account hijacking. We all know people tend to use the same passwords on every single service that they use. So it's just another example of those. If they use the same password with those fitness applications, it gets leaked. It can be used for, I don't know, their email account or anything else. The other one is you can actually sign up for premium services, which will cost you something. So there's one application, which is an interesting concept as well. They try to motivate you to go to the gym. Well, that's how it started. Now it's motivating you for less calories and stuff as well. And how they motivate you is you actually have to subscribe with your credit card. Credit card is securely stored, so that's fine. And then you sign up and say, well, I'll manage to get to the gym twice a week. And then they verify by using the GPS location. If you check into the gym, it's all fine. And you get a reward of $1 or $2 per challenge that you accepted. If you're not making it, you're actually paying $5. And there is no, oh, I changed my mind, cancel it. So you have to actually fulfill the 1 week, and you lose your money because you already swiped your credit card before that. So by hijacking an account, I can obviously set you up for, let's say, 6 times a week to gym. Sounds reasonable, right? If you don't even use the application that often, you might not even see the pop-up messages that you should go to the gym. So it makes it pretty difficult to fulfill this challenge, which in the end means you losing money. The money is not, well, they get some percentage of it, but most of the money is actually then distributed to the others who fulfilled it, so you do something for the greater good. But it's probably still not what you want to do. Others allow you to subscribe for premium services, because that's usually how they make money. So the information is stored in the cloud, but you don't really get access to the information. So basic statistics and stuff, yes. But if you want to get more granular information, you have to pay for extra API services or special services. Usually they're billed afterwards, but still you can sign up for stuff and maybe use the free trials up, stuff like that. So you can definitely also have a monetary loss with it. And just go in, change the privacy settings that every of your run will be posted to everyone. Is probably also not what you want to have if you look back at the sexual activities earlier on there from Fitbit. So it's one of the questions. But spam obviously being the other one. So I already said you can log into the cloud services and you can start enumerating. So the 877, that's my test user account, so feel free to use that one. But the others are real users, right? So you can iterate through it, get all the address, all the email address, and you have a perfect attack vector. Don't do it. I'm not suggesting here anything, but you theoretically could definitely do it. And you could also create new accounts, because we've seen that's also just a post request. So generate 1,000 accounts, set up a page with a picture, and instead of the picture, use your Viagra pill or whatever you want to push, and actually you have a landing page which is accessible by everyone, and you can link with your spam emails to it. Makes it more difficult as well. And the whole interaction with social media as well, because you can search for all your friends or the friends of the account that you hijacked, and then start sending messages to them like, hey, I have a new challenge for you. Use this pill to lose 10 pounds in 1 week. Go for it. And we all know most of the people won't fall for it, but there's still that small 0.002% which will fall for it, which is enough for a spammer. So there's lots of new avenues if you get your head around it. But there's also good things. So I don't want to say it's all bad, because one of the good things, well, depends on how you look at it, is this information, as I said, is already used. And one of the clear kind of strategic advantage would be for health insurance, healthcare, and so on. So a lot of the insurance companies are actually now, like the black box in your car, saying, if you use one of those Fitbits, Jawbones, or any wearable devices, you'll get a discount. Well, if you use it regularly. So if you use it, you get 10% off your monthly bill for the insurance. Or others, like Earned It and so on, give you a voucher, so $10 for your coffee shop, or 15% off outdoor jackets and running shoes, stuff like that. So real monetary rewards. Well, of course, it never really specifies that you have to do it on your own. I read a few of the EULAs and they don't. So one of the things that comes to mind is having a dog sitter, right? So maybe you have a student, pay him $5 and you get the other $5 for walking around with the Fitbit. So he can use tens on each arm, right? So that's probably enough to get money for the student and you get some, so it's win-win. Just like dog sitters that we've seen in major cities as well. But then again, that would be the kind of lazy approach, right? The more advanced approach is just hack into it, right? Change the information. I mean, just post regularly, yes, I've done my gym, yes, I look after myself and everything, and you get the information there for free, you get your discount, and you learn some coding, so it's kind of a win-win as well, right? I mean, seriously, there are some applications. Obviously, there is the downside, which a lot of people are afraid of, and I can see the point there, is that this information might also be misused by some of the companies behind it, right? I mean, health insurance, yes, I see the point, but the question here again is what is done with the information, who is it shared with, and so on. We've seen some cases where employers have started to give one free wearable to every employee, so to make them more healthier and stuff like that. But it also means that you can track where they are. So when we get to that point as well, so you can track how long the 5-minute smoking break really is. You could even track if they fall asleep on the desk, but let's assume that's not the regular case. But stuff like that could be misused by them to actually find out who to fire, who to promote, and stuff like that. And we've seen a few of the companies which already do stuff like that in the same direction with CCTVs, but with the wearable device would be much more easier and intransparent, so most of the employees would probably don't notice. So again, some more impact. Loss of privacy. As I said, your birthday, your real name, your street address, your weight, your height, everything. Ideal for identity theft. Depends on what you want to do with it. Also nice for profiling. So if you do spamming, you can pick out the right targets or find someone from a targeted company that you want to do. And you could also go for extortion stuff. So if you see someone going to, let's say, the red light districts more often, you can track it and maybe you get some money out of it. Or if, let's say, someone's cheating on his girlfriend, which you obviously shouldn't, but if they have a wearable device and they post stuff or they're trackable, you could still use that information to actually blackmail that person. Or if you're more on the paranoid side, you can go for stalking. Obviously, pretty ideal for stalking because you know where the people are. You can go after them. We see how to do that as well. Breaking into your house while you're doing the marathon, yes. Kidnapping, if you're a high-profile target, or maybe the kid of a high-profile target. I mean, have your imagination, right? Corporate misuse, just what I mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of things which could be misused. I'm not saying that all of them are already widely used, but we've seen some of that could be, and there's ways around to protect it, so they definitely should be integrated. Interesting as well is the loss of integrity. As I said, you can block stuff, but you can inject stuff as well. So just boost yourself, your ego, by saying, hey, I'll run a marathon every second day, just because I can. Get the rewards and stuff like that. But you can also kind of delete other people's achievements. So there's some challenges, high scores, and there's some rivals there. But you can also have someone, well, let's say, eat 2,000 calories each day more. Then that might get them frustrated as well. So, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff, including delete the account or the history. Most of the servers actually don't even allow you to delete the account. There is just no such function, which is weird as well. But those who do, usually it's just one click, so one post as well, and the account is gone with all the information, so you lose your history account. And the second one, we didn't have time for that, but if you have enough time, you could also reverse engineer the firmware on those devices, because wearable devices have a firmware as well, gets updated, usually with some new features and stuff, longer battery life. But what about getting a new firmware which counts every step as 10 steps. So you still have to do some exercise, but you get the better benefit out of it. Definitely plausible. I looked at a few of them. They're transmitting in through SSL in a session, so it's not so easy to do man in the middle on those. They have the firmware encrypted with kind of their own priority stuff, but it's not signed. So you could still swap it. So doing some hardware stuff, hardware fun, reverse engineering, definitely possible with some of the devices. So what else could you do? So one of the things, obviously, is Bluetooth Low Energy. As I said, Bluetooth Low Energy is used with most of the devices to communicate between the device and your smartphone. Bluetooth Low Energy, or Bluetooth Smart, is part of the Bluetooth 4.0 specification, came out 2010. It's actually not the real Bluetooth as you all know it, so it is different. It's still wireless though, but it's using 40 channels, 3 of them for advertisements, so 37 channels with channel hopping, frequency hopping. But since it's limited and the speed is limited as well, you can actually still sniff it, follow it through, get the hopping sequence, and then decode everything. Look at Mike Ryan. He did a few wonderful talks, different conferences, where he explains how to actually crack and sniff the whole handshake and everything of the Bluetooth Low Energy devices. Because one of the problems as well is, if you look at the bracelet like this, so not a smartwatch, there is a limited amount of display, as in 5 LEDs, but there's no keypad. So you cannot really have a pin code, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, being displayed on your smartphone, being entered on your device, because you simply can't. So the only thing you can do is have the device which is pretty close to your smartphone, and then have something like tap it twice to know, okay, this is the device I'm pairing at the moment. So for most of them, they cannot use the full specifications of Bluetooth because there are just some limitations of the devices themselves. And even then, as I said, the pairing has been broken, so it could be broken. Bluetooth actually allows you to use encryption, but so far I haven't seen any of the devices using the encryption. Might be because, well, it might start to drain your battery life a little bit, and obviously they're more concerned that the battery will run out of it. Although some have learned and actually implement their own encryption on top of it. I already mentioned Fitbit with Fitbit Flex and stuff. Till last year, they actually transmitted everything in clear text over Bluetooth. There's some nice research work there as well. We can have your own APIs to actually query your device, get the information from it, analyze some stuff. So they did a few APIs to, if you're watching movies on demand and you fall asleep on your couch, it actually pauses your video streaming because the device knows you're falling asleep and kind of interacts with it. So yeah, I see the point in that. I like that. Could happen to me as well. But obviously Fitbit didn't really like that, so they added their own encryption on top of it. So now they're using Bluetooth Low Energy, but the packets or the dumps that they transmit are encrypted with kind of their own version. Which is good because with those devices, there's one cavity as well. If you have a laptop, they give you one of those nice Bluetooth dongles, so you can sync it over that and gets into the air. But because you really, really want to have real-time data, it can sync with any laptop. So if you pass with your variable in front of my laptop, it will sync your information through my laptop to the cloud without knowing your device. Now, as it's encrypted, it's kind of nice. Well, I can still block it, kind of draining your battery by having it resubmit. But at least at the moment, I can't read it without breaking the encryption. But stuff like that will more and more happen. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion going on. Do you really need the real-time updates of, yes, I finished my run, now I want to post it everywhere, or is it not good enough if you back at home and kind of say sync now, kind of a forced sync? Depending on the application, it might not really need every 5 minutes to check for it. So another feature that we looked at is Bluetooth has kind of a privacy feature, which is in the specifications, Bluetooth.org, specified that to kind of reduce the ability to track a Bluetooth device, it can randomize and periodically change the MAC address that it's using. It's the same idea principle that we've seen now with Apple on the Wi-Fi side, because a few of the shopping malls started tracking your Wi-Fi MAC address. If you walk in and it scans for any of the known frequently used Wi-Fi hotspots, you transmit your MAC address. They know, oh, you've been here 3 times, so maybe we send you a 20% voucher, and then you'll get into the shop and actually buy it. So ideal for marketing purposes. Bluetooth, since it's 2010, well, Bluetooth 4.0, sorry, knew, okay, there is a weakness. We should probably address it. None of the big vendors seems to use it at the moment. All devices that we looked at don't use it, which obviously means that you can start tracking those devices. And to do that the fancy way, we're using a standard Raspberry Pi with a battery pack, a Bluetooth, smart Bluetooth 4.0 dongle, an SD card. So you get everything for $75 or so. And it looks like, got a few of those devices around there. So it's pretty handy, small. Yes, you could use your laptop as well, but Raspberry Pi seems to be the thing to do it now. So those are the small, run 10, 20 hours, depending on the size of your battery pack, and then start logging all the information. So what you can do with it is you can start tracking people. So we did the first test at a mini marathon in Ireland, and we thought, okay, marathon, most people probably will use their fitness wearables if they have one, because that's kind of the whole idea, right? You want to know if you're getting better or not. So we used 2 stations, as in 2 Raspberry Pis with the Bluetooth modifications, one near the start, one kind of in half of it, to know, okay, who's overtaking who's giving up in half of it, and kind of just to know if you can get any interesting measurements out of it. And here you see the different devices. So that's Fitbit Flex, which seems to own most of Ireland's market. There's Jawbone, there's Polar, there's Pebble watches as well. There's a few different ones. I'll highlight a few a little later on as well. Of course, I agree. To that point, we only saw the MAC address. So we probably don't know yet who it is. Although Bluetooth has a range of up to 100, usually it's more the range of 10 meters around you, which is good for identifying people. So that means you can actually see who's passing you, and if you use multiple stations, you can pretty much say, okay, it's that guy or it's that guy. If you use it in conjunction with the normal Bluetooth scanners, and we scan both, so Bluetooth Low Energy and Bluetooth for smartphones, you also get the devices, the device name. So here, from the mini marathon, we got 563 different devices. 30 of them had a name which sounds like a real name and not just iPhone 2 or something. So you got Rita, Darren, Frank's phone, and so on. Of course, Big Harry Bolo. Not sure if that's his real name, but it kind of gives you one direction who probably could be it, and so on. So if you have that, you already get the link to the name of the person. And if you link that back to the application, which transmits the information in clear text, just wait at the finishing line till they start syncing now, because they're proud of it. They want to have every of their friends know about it. And then you get the real name, the picture, the passwords, and everything for sure as well. And from that moment on, it's stalking time. So then you can actually start using that information to follow those people around and do whatever you shouldn't do, right? So to test it, obviously scan that black hat as well. It's kind of shame because my talk is pretty early, which is nice because I can enjoy the rest even more. But I wanted to do scanning at different talks over the days and see how many people actually turn up for breakfast after the reception tonight and so on. So that's one of the downsides, so sorry for that. So the data are a little small. Second of all is, ideally, I would use those kind of in a concealed bag and use some duct tape to place them behind the doors. At the entrance, you probably saw it. No, just kidding, I didn't. But I could have. I want to do it at the conference in US, but obviously in the US, you shouldn't leave blinking stuff around. because that means nobody will attend your talk, because there is nobody. Here, I'm more afraid that someone's going to steal it and take it home. So sorry for that. I didn't use that, but I was walking around during breakfast and the keynote session. So let's have a look at some of the data. So I have one of the devices here connected. Hope you can read it. So it's basically just the SQL database. Going to check here for the devices that we found. So we got that 8 different devices, most of them Flex, some UP24, so Jawbones, and one Fitbit One. You got the MAC address there, so yes, I'm going to delete it afterwards, but sorry, it's in the video already. It's actually pretty difficult. You can't really change it. But sorry, you used it. Of course, that's the one with the distinguished name. So if we look at all the devices, we see there's actually a lot of devices which acting on Bluetooth Low Energy, but not transmitting any name. So some of the vendors actually reacted and started not using the name and kind of in discovery mode sending the message to everyone. Some of them, like the Nike here, don't transmit it, but still from the MAC address, we can decode that it is a Nike Plus in someone's shoe. So, well, the Apple one there might be a beacon. I seen a Polar one just scrolling there. Where was it? Apple, Nike. So we see that there are quite a few of those devices around. And so that's just checking for the devices. What I can do now as well is just take one of those devices and check for the beacon. So every 2 or 3 minutes, they actually send kind of a, hey, I'm alive beacon. And you can obviously track that one as well, which I do. So having one here, just choosing kind of by random. So whoever the 330th one with the MAC address that we just saw was probably sitting close by to me during the keynote. So we see there from 9:10, so maybe came in a little late, sitting close by till 10:02, and then left. So yes, I don't know who it is, but give me more time and I'll find you. That's not a promise, sorry. Another one, I think 72, was a Fitbit that I saw earlier on. So that was during the break. Here I know who it is. It's one of the ladies serving the coffee. Was actually walking by me, and I followed her for 2 minutes. Sorry. I'm single, sorry. Yes, for research only, I know. But obviously would allow you now to kind of redefine that. The numbers at the back is the signal strength, so you could use it to triangulate, but giving 10-meter range, I'm not sure if it's worth it. But you obviously could use this information now to, as I said, use 2 or 3 of those devices in the location at the entrance, here at my talk, and different other talks, and then you get a nice kind of idea who's attending which talk and so on. Just by passively listening to all the people who are using those fitness applications. And I probably will be scanning for the rest of the days as well, so if you're more interested, find me tomorrow and we'll see what we can get on to see who actually woke up, because now I know the ones who were in the keynote session, maybe they given up on tomorrow, so they're skipping breakfast, stuff like that. You can pretty easily find out. So those are the results. Some of the people, they do want the information to actually be seen by everyone. So there's a small trend which started, I think, during summer this year, of people running shapes and having the GPS coordinates then uploaded, so your running trail, and making funny figures. Yes, of course, it started with Big Harry Bolo. So the first pictures were penises drawn in different cities. It's actually pretty difficult to find a not penis picture that you can use. But I thought, here, Space Invaders, that's definitely safe. It's not as easy as it looks, because you actually have to walk pretty slow. Otherwise, you're going to kind of skip some edges, because the GPS jumps as well. But hey, at least from what I can tell, they're doing the actual run, so it is exercise, which probably is not the worst thing to do. So I think that's a good thing, a positive side. So coming together and kind of getting to the conclusion, we saw that 52% of all the applications do not have a privacy policy. And that's kind of scary because that means they don't really care about your privacy, which means they probably don't have most security priorities on their list as well. So it's probably just to get it out pretty fast. 20% send credentials, as in your password, in clear text. A lot more of them send your activity in clear text. A lot of them have wrong sessions, as in I use my password to get a session, but then I just change the user ID to your user ID and they get all the information from you. Because, hey, I have a valid session. Why bind it to the user ID? So a lot of them still have the concepts wrong, which are easy solvable and probably taught by many of the classes here at the trainings at Black Hat as well. But yes, you have to be quick, fast on the market, and sometimes the development cycle is pretty intense as well. We get the 14 different contacted domains, so the information is actually spread. As I said, sometimes information is leaked unintentional, so even if they say they're not using your information, it might still be ending up at the advertisement network or the crash analytic platform. And even if they're not using it for a bad or malicious purpose, we all know breaches happen kind of regularly. So maybe one of them get breached and then they have all your information as well. So kind of think about those. And as I said, all of the big devices are traceable, at least during the tests we did, which was during summertime. All of the big ones were traceable, not randomization of MAC addresses being used, which is kind of a feature you could enable. You can still get past that because after the advertisement beacons are sent, you can still, as I said, hop the frequency as well and sniff the whole traffic. So you might still be able to actually track them. But here it's just easy and just raise the bar a little bit to make it not so easy for everyone to actually track it. So what can people actually do against it? It's actually not so easy if you want to use it. And obviously, yes, it's nice. That's actually not mine. It's my brother's, which I stole. I'm not using one. But it's not because of the research, just because I think I can keep track of my running myself. But Bluetooth, for most of it, you can actually disable Bluetooth because you don't really need it for most of the time. With some of them, it's getting more and more difficult because it kind of uses your GPS from the smartphones. It has to be synced, otherwise you won't really know where you've taken your 10,000 steps and so on. Makes it more difficult. But definitely keep the devices updated. As I said, some of them do patch the software. Firmware gets updated as well. So use those to at least eliminate the known problems that have been reported to them and have been solved. Not using the same passwords on the device that on any other service should be clear. But still, emphasis on that one, using strong passwords. Look for a privacy policy. I know it sounds silly, but if they don't have a privacy policy, what else do they not have on their agenda? So at least go for the ones which have one, and then you're a little safer. Doesn't really mean they're actually applying it and they're following through, but at least they took the time to make something up, which is already more comforting than not having anything at all. Yeah, make sure that you're capable of knowing which information is shared with who and the excessive information sharing. So if you want to use social networks, fine, do it. But be aware that information might actually be passed, and if someone hacks in, there might be other information being passed. Obviously, on the smartphone, use a sophisticated lock, because otherwise, if you lose it, someone else might know all about if you're pregnant, where you go every evening for drinks and stuff like that. Might not be something you want to share, and encrypt the stuff there. One shout out to the I Am the Cavalry. It's kind of a grassroots initiative, which I think is nice. I haven't had time to actually do much for it, but they're looking after different wearables and Internet of Things devices. So they've done a lot of on the automotive side lately, so car devices and integration of smart cars, but they're also looking after medical devices. Because the fitness one might be, yes, it's nice if I know you've done 1,000 steps and I've done 500, woohoo. So what's the big deal? Well, we obviously also have insulin pumps, which are using Bluetooth. So you have a sensor taking your measurement in the blood, how much insulin or how much the level of insulin is. And you have the pump, which indicates, okay, now you need a shot of insulin if you have diabetes and actually issue it. That's Bluetooth, right? Because you don't really want to have wires coming from your stomach. And I can see the point. Problem is, if someone else hijacks that, it can get really nasty down to casualties. And the same, obviously, for peacemakers. There's been Black Hat talks about that as well. So security with those medical devices is definitely important. I know a few guys are working on those, and they really try to protect the stack. There's always the problem with if you jam it, because all of the Bluetooth is pretty easy to jam. If you're just jamming my high score of running a marathon, I couldn't care less. But if you do it for an insulin pump, it starts to getting really nasty. So there are a few cavities, and the I'm the Cavalry is, as I said, a grassroots initiative to kind of boost awareness and talk to the vendors. Because there are some stuff that you can do as a user by choosing the right stuff, using it the right way, but a lot of things have to be implemented on the devices themselves, and make sure that they actually use security on the right side, because that's the easy part to fix it. Don't worry, I don't want to have yellow software running on every of your scales back at home, but at least have the vendors think about security and make them secure from there. And with that, I'll leave it up for questions. I think we still have 5 or 10 minutes. Which topic would you want to know more? Question there, sir.
My question is sort of both parts. The first one is, have you seen anybody who's been working on just capturing the data directly from the device and not sending it to the cloud?
Yes, so the question was, have we seen people trying to get the information from the device themselves without bothering about the cloud and kind of interacting with the device themselves? Yes, we've seen a few. As I said, it was the one with if you fall asleep on the couch, you get it. Most of the vendors are really reluctant to give you API access to the devices. Because oh, as in physically pointing down. I haven't seen one yet. As I said, we haven't had the time, but yes, it's actually not so difficult hardware. So break it up, get a JTAG on it, read out the boss.
The second thing is, what about custom firmware?
Yeah, as I mentioned, definitely custom firmware is possible. As I'm afraid, I have my other day job, so I couldn't spend all the time. But yes, if there's some volunteers, as I said, the ones that I looked at, they don't sign the firmware. So it's actually pretty easy to upload your own one once you modified it the correct way. It's a bit difficult because all of the ones that I looked at, they use proper SSL authentication and session. So you cannot simply just, everyone who's in the room gets the new firmware and now your device is bricked. But if you look at the devices or if the vendor's website, most of them have in the FAQs that if you did an update and your device is bricked, please call service hotline. So it does happen even with the real one, which obviously means, yes, there is no foolproof way for them to verify it. So absolutely, yes. And I would love to see it, as I said, kind of tuning up one step being 10 steps or 100 steps makes exercising a lot more easier. Does that answer your question? Any other topic that you're interested for the wearables? Well, everyone's hungry for lunch, scared about the blue.
The deficiencies that you mentioned that you noticed in the apps in that
Yes.
area, do you think this is specific to that area, or would it be representative for other apps as well? For instance, sending passwords and clear text, not checking certificates or things like that.
So
Is it something specific, or is it a more general? Can it be generalized to other applications as well?
So the question was, did we see the lack of security awareness with sending passwords in clear text? Is it specific to these fitness applications, or did we see it with any other application? Unfortunately, it's with any other applications as well, which seems to be kind of every modern application. There have been a few studies actually, how many of the Android applications, how many of the iOS applications are not really following security best practices. So yes, unfortunately, it happens quite often. Surprisingly, all the cloud services did patch Heartbleed and stuff like that, but on the application level, as I said, they're not using even the simplest ones which you learn first grade while studying computer science. Does that answer your question? Question there?
Did your research touch on devices like Garmin running devices which, as well as Bluetooth connected to the PC, they also have a GPS on them? So there's more information on the device together, right?
Yeah, so the question was about Garmin and other devices which have GPS on the device itself, so kind of smart devices where you go into the direction of smart watches even now, which get your pulse and everything, which is kind of freaky as well. So we only looked for the tracking. We've seen a few of the Garmins actually, and they are able to be tracked as well. We haven't looked at the information being passed. But yeah, reminds me as well that one of the scenarios that we put out is all the information, especially the pulse, will obviously be interesting because if you walk past somewhere, like the lady I mentioned earlier, and you see the pulse is raising, that's a good indication, right? So maybe, well, or she's scared. I mean, yes, it's probably more like it. Yeah, I agree. But information like that can actually also, that goes back to the kind of cultural aspect, might be influenced later on in online dating platforms. Because you always know I'm searching for the sporty type, because yes, everyone says that, right? If you have a Fitbit to prove it, that might even be nicer, except if you want the sexual activity being logged there as well. But maybe we're going to a future where we start seeing that people are actually requesting, hey, share your online wearable profile with me. Well, I'm not suggesting anything. I think, chance for 2 more questions.
I'm just scared that the vendor's still not using security by design.
Yeah, so why are the vendors not using security by default or design? I guess that's a question we've been asking for 10 years or even longer, and might even be asking for longer. As I said, we are talking to the vendors, others are talking to the vendors as well. Often it's, well, it's not so much, we haven't heard any complaints from the user yet. It's theoretically, why should anyone actually track you? I mean, stalking, yes, but that's small, kind of downplay it. So as long as there is no peacemaker, casualty, or stuff like that, those people, they know, and they actually do security by default. But all the others, it's more kind of a accessory detail, so like having a jewelry. Usually jewelry comes for style and not for security, unfortunately. Last question there.
Okay, what was your specific motivation on this type of research?
Good question. So why did I choose those wearables? Well, one of them, because my brother's using one. No, I'm not stalking my brother. Don't get there. But we also thought it's an interesting topic because they get more and more popular, and it's kind of the starting device before smartwatches. I mean, we knew already that the Android were going for the Google Health Kit, and we knew Apple probably comes with Health Kit as well. So it goes into that direction, and we think, okay, if they're already doing it wrong now, it will only get worse and worse because you're adding more and more features to it. As I said, newer watches actually get your pulse and submit the pulse. Some of them get your O2 level through a sensor as well. That's a lot of sensitive information. They want to share it with the doctors. So they say, well, the user usually makes errors putting them into the application, so why not eliminate the user in the sense of he doesn't care, he does not have to care. Information is passed directly, which I agree is good. But yes, what could possibly go wrong with all the information? So that was kind of the main reason. And obviously want to come here at Black Hat. Well, with that, I don't want to keep you longer for lunch. Thanks for attending and enjoy.